For decades, equality in the workplace has been a major issue for women, but many have been paving the way through various careers, putting themselves on top despite what their peers think of them. One career path in particular, though, hasn't been the easiest to conquer: sports broadcasting. More and more women are becoming involved in sports broadcasting, whether it's on air with Fox Sports or ESPN, if it's a sports talk radio show, or maybe just the sports section of the local newspaper. Women such as Erin Andrews, Linda Cohn, and Andy Petrillo are putting themselves out there in a career that until now has involved mostly men. Unfortunately, these women aren't always treated the same as their male counterparts. Many have come forward and spoken of the hardships they have endured because their co-workers or their fans don't feel that they are adequate enough to cover sports because of their gender. Julie DeCaro, a sports reporter, once had a male reporter call her an extremely derogatory name because she disagreed with his opinion on the club's starting lineup. A fan once even tweeted this at her. For my project, I wanted to research and determine how women sportscasters have been treated in the past, how they're being treated currently, and what may lie ahead for them in the future. I interviewed Erica Herskowitz, a part-time lecturer for Rutgers University and a sportcaster for various different outlets, about whether she feels she's just as knowledgeable as sports as men, and about her experiences within the field.
Okay, I don't know if I'm just as knowledgeable about sports as anybody. I think regardless of man or woman, it's a matter of how much you put into learning your craft and understanding what goes into, sports specifically, and knowing about teams. I don't retain a lot of information because a lot of it is minutia that I don't really care about. I'm an anchor, so what I do is find the news, interpret it. News, when I say news, I mean sports, and then I'm able to write scripts and, as an anchor, just give scores and highlights and news sports stories. So for me, understanding the games is important, which I do. But holding on to a bunch of history and facts and that kind of stuff is not necessarily my thing. So I'm one that isn't embarrassed about not knowing a million things about a million things. It's okay for me to not feel as though I need to know everything about everything in my position. But I don't think gender has anything to do with that. I think it's just a matter of your interest and how much you put into it, into getting to know your craft. I think specifically the first time it happened to me, I was at Rutgers. I was a student working at WRSU as the student station, and I was covering the men's basketball team. I was the first female play-by-play voice of the men's basketball team, women's too. And in doing so, I was able to travel with the teams, and I think I took a lot of nonsense from the coaches who treated me like I was a cheerleader. One of them would bother me and ask me when I was going to make him dinner. I was, inappropriately touched, so to speak, by a coach that, grabbed my tush at an event. And so I think at that point, being a young, aspiring female broadcaster, sportscaster specifically, I was put into situations that, I wasn't necessarily ready for. And so those kind of things made me feel very uncomfortable. But I have to say, in thinking about being a woman in a male-dominated field, I would say that for as much as I take, that's bad, I get the good. So in other words, if I'm mistreated by somebody, I'm given an opportunity because I'm female by somebody else. And I think that it sort of balances itself out.
I spoke with Catherine Castillo, a student at Rutgers aspiring to be a sports journalist. I asked her whether she has had any similar experiences to Erica's.
I had an internship like 2 summers ago, and I had a male counterpart that was working with me, and he wasn't technically my boss, but he was at the same level as my boss. He read both of our articles, and he really was like, "Oh wow, you write really well." I didn't think that should be something surprising since we both got that internship based on writing, so it just felt like he looked down upon that I was a female and was surprised that I write well.
To be fair, I also wanted to ask a male sportscaster if he's ever experienced something similar, even though he's a guy. I spoke with Adam Nardelli, who is also an aspiring sports journalist from Rutgers.
I don't know if there's any experience where I've it's directly related to that. I used to work at a ShopRite in high school, and the job that I did, I did the online shopping. So I would go and get the online shopping orders done. I'm gonna go and shop the groceries basically, and that was a job where it was mostly done by women. I was mostly working with 45-year-old women, and then there was me who was like 16 or 17 at the time. in high school. So I think at times they would maybe not think that I would be able to get the job done as good as like one of the mothers who is experienced shopping big orders or whatever. So I think maybe being that I was a white or a white kid or a teenager, in comparison to these other women, they thought that maybe I wouldn't be able to do it as well because of my experience, because of just being a guy.
To not leave anyone out, I also wanted to get the opinion of a sports fan, specifically a male sports fan. I asked Gabriel Sustick if he had a preference of where he received his information pertaining sports, and if the gender of the reporter supplying that information mattered as well.
I really feel like there's not a preference, really. I mean, obviously there's more males that you see doing the news and other stuff, but I think you see females do it. I don't care. I mean, if you're going to give me information that I want to know and stuff like that, then it doesn't matter who's giving it to me in that instance.
I found Sustick's response to be refreshing and hopeful. Many students before me have wondered about this very topic and have completed their senior thesis on it. Most found, as I did, that in the past it was definitely at its worst, but the present is improving, leading toward a future free of gender discrimination. Many women interviewed in the other students' projects have said that when it comes to the athletes they work with, many tend to open up and are more relaxed when being interviewed by a woman. Within my project and research specifically, I found that many of today's youth are above this discrimination and feel that there is no difference. If you have a passion and a knowledge for sports, then your gender doesn't matter. Finally, I asked Erica Herskowitz if she had any advice for those students that dream of being in the sports broadcasting field.
I would say that it's a definite grind. I would say that anticipating a full-time job right out of college is super unrealistic. And I would also suggest shutting out the haters, like the parents or the grandparents or the aunts and uncles that have a little doubt that you'll be able to achieve your goal because it seems like a dream, like a pipe dream. If you can shut down the voices that are discouraging you and push forward, I would say that you'll be able to make it, and be willing to work weekends and holidays and nights, because that's the deal.